Vince, the booker. Okay, just real quick, the timeline here is a very tight timeline for the budget. Tonight is the first of 3 budget meetings. We're going to meet again next Wednesday. Just keep in mind, so May 31st, the budget discussion, the board is set to adopt the budget next week as well. It's a Wednesday meeting next week. We're going to be on Tuesdays next week, which is Wednesday. June 13th is the legally required budget hearing. That's on Tuesday. And then the budget vote on June 20th from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. The secondary school. So I just want to leave that up there that I will up to this on the May 17th and a little bit. So West Hempstead, the only district on Long Island, the proposed budget was at or below the cap and ours was below the tax cap, and still good for the second year in a row. There we go. We are also the only district on all of Long Island, 124 school districts, whose proposed budget did not get the majority of the vote. It was one of the districts on Long Island, the budget did not pass. That districts sought to hear the tax cap, they needed 60% of the vote. They got about 58%, so the only district did not get a majority of the vote. So in terms of spending, the average Nassau County School District had a budget-to-budget increase of 6.01%. West Hempstead budget was 4%. Very reasonable. To me, 31% below the average increase in Nassau County. Reasonable budget. In terms of tax levy increase, we were at 1.99%. The average in Nassau County is 1.91%. Again, we were right there in the mix with other Nassau County districts. So, again, reasonable proposal. So our original proposed budget, again, $74 million, about a $3 million budget increase. Again, as I mentioned in the previous slide, 4.2% spending. Okay, 1.99% tax levy increase that we talked about. Below the district's 2.43% tax cap, so about 0.5% below. We were at or below the tax cap for the total year in a row. And the reminder that for the 2021 year, we would have 0% levy increase last year, increased 1.55% below the tax levy cap about 2. Additionally, a little interesting note, 12 years we presented below the tax cap. We've actually presented now 14 budgets. We proposed again in June, 14 budgets at or below. The approximate increase that we talked about in that proposed budget, $155 per year for the average single family homeowner. Instead, about 43 cents per day. This slide is will look familiar for those who've been at budget meetings. The only difference here is now these are approved budgets for surrounding districts. Again, our levy is 1.99% below most of the surrounding tax levy increases. The average is at 2.42%. So why are expenses increasing? Enrollment is decreasing. We've heard things out there that we don't talk about why costs are increasing. Not true. In the slide was 2021, where we talked about why costs were increasing. 122, same thing. These are the high level cost drivers. Again, for 2023. And again, 2024. So if you're hearing that we don't talk about why the costs are going up, that's it. Additionally, we talked about this for the last several years. Our transportation expenses over the 8-year period have more than doubled. Again, we talk about this every year. This is one of the costs that is increased. Despite the fact that Also heard we should use more reserves and fund balance. Yeah. This is a chart showing our budgeted use of reserves and fund balance. The blue line is the budgeted use of reserves and fund balance, increased more than 4 times since 2017. The gold line is the actual fund balance, which has increased. We can talk about that as well. Because we're starting to decrease again. Increase the budgeted use of reserves and fund balance, the effects tends to be. This chart shows the reserves that we have. Again, reserves increased earlier in this trend. They are now down. We talked about the expenditures. I had slides like this last year. The bar on the left is our expenses, on the right is our revenue. Right at the moment now, it was not over. We are forecasting expenses around $68 billion. In the vicinity of $8 million budget, which is around where we've been the past few years. It's approximately, will be spending approximately 96% of budgeted expense. So expenses forecasted coming below budget, but above where we're forecasting revenue. We are forecasting revenue to become general revenue, excluding reserves and fund balance. We're anticipating revenue to be funding under budget. That means now there's a shortfall between revenue and the expenses. The expenses are buying the revenue, it's an operating deficit. And fill the gap, you fill the gap by using reserve and fund balance. And so, as I said, revenue coming in under expenses and operating deficit. We were in a deficit last year. I'm presenting with slight deficit again. For those who were here for our audit, 21-22 school year, our external auditor, you mentioned that because for 21-22, we were also in the 96%. We spent about 96% of our budget. For the year, you said that is a very reasonable metric. And there is reasonable budgeting. What happens if the budget fails? Again, budget fails, and this is our second vote. The law requires we go to contingency budget. What that means is 0% tax levy increase. 0% tax levy increase means that we reduce our revenue by about $960,000, offsetting the reduction in the budget amount. What the law requires is that all non-contingent budget items, the equipment, hardware, has to be removed from the budget. In the event of a contingency, where else do we need to look? The things that are essentially the language of the regulation, but things that are not essential in the education program. So when we look at it, we have to, but these are the things that we could look at, increasing class size, eliminating things like athletics, murals, electives, eliminating the use of district facilities by outside groups, having those, I believe we allow them to use, but they've got to cover the full cost of that use, which is, when we talk about facility use on weekends, it's significant cost. The other thing that we would look at, what we could look at is transportation. Has been, as I showed, one of the largest drivers of our expense, and really doubling, before the doubling. So these are some of the areas that could be looked at. Again, in the event of the contingency, we talked about what the increase was for the average homeowners of the savings, reserves, and tax levy increase. We're getting about that $55 per year, 43. And this is based on the most recent assessed values. Those assessed values can change. We get the updated assessed values. And just the same information kind of presented side by side. In the event of a contingency budget, the board would, to the board, or you have to adopt a contingency budget, it would not be an additional vote on the community. Two votes and then you would to continue. Just again, reminder, you are not registered to vote. You know people who are not registered or they have missed the registration for the May vote. They do have an opportunity to register for the May vote as well. The deadline for registration is Friday, June 16th. If you're interested, come to the district office. If you want to see the district office, she'd be happy to help you. If you are unable to make the vote on June 20th, you can vote absentee. Deadline for requesting an absentee ballot. If you want to receive the ballot by now, is June 13th. Which is a week before the votes. You can, there is an application on the district website or you can stop in the office. And then finally, the budget vote itself, again, Tuesday, June 20th, secondary school board meeting 7 a.m. to 9 p.m.
If it's more of a statement. More of
The event of that vote contingency, do we have time that deciding say the vote fails, second time, and how much time do we have to decide? You know, what that contingency can consist
Not a lot of time, because the year goes.
of, and then we have to come to some meetings.
See, counting down to like, see.
so I have questions.
Just for refreshers, how many positions do we not read our this year? Yeah, I didn't put that here. We have projected to reduce the FTE by 2.6 positions.
Sorry.
Yeah, I just had a question about, we talked about declining homes and should be declining costs. When I speak to members of the community, question I get when I ask questions, so when somebody moves out of your house, what costs go down? And we really came around to speak. Fewer teachers. That's what I want to see. My question is, several years ago, we were at 2,000 plus students. Today, it's 1,600 students. Roughly how many teachers is student on?
So in terms of teachers, we could pull the data. Let's say the last about 7 years. 1,000 students in the district. 10 teachers were down over that time. Total staff, round number of. And as we stated in our presentation a year ago regarding secondary school efficiency model, progress, parent side, like for the class sizes, asking from secondary school, reasonable number would look like maybe class 30. Please. Question of the nature of special ed classes, state mandates. How many students we can have in a class? One thing I would like to answer is the fact that, yes, there is a declining enrollment. We discussed all the reasons why. Part, some of our family students in their private school. Support that. We have to keep in mind that our student population has also changed. So increase in the population of these special ed population. And with that comes cost. Do not go on our district website because we're pretty limited. I suggest you go and check out the story on our students while they're using on the website. And our students made fabulous progress. But when he first got here, he required at least 3 different teachers, sports, more support staff to help him see his way through. No surprise to anyone in the education circles. Special ed student with certain needs and developing, finding their way through school. They're in an ICT month, that's 2 teachers. They go to reading, that's 3rd teacher. They go to math IS, that's the 4th teacher. They go to speech OT, now we're at 7. I'm making excuses, I'm just explaining how the world works. Are there efficiencies in that? Of course, because we firmly believe in these restricted environment. We also believe in keeping our students who live in West Hempstead, whenever it's feasible. So, thank you to the PBS staff, be here tonight. A whole host of other people, Board of Education, administration and staff, particularly because they do the work every day. We have built 811, 1211, 1511. Ratio means 811. Eight students to 1 teacher, 8. That, and we're always, even mid-year, looking for ways to allow our students to achieve the highest, push themselves to their level. So students in 8, they're making progress. They can make the lead at 12, they get 15. During the 15, they go to ICT, that's what we expected. This is what we do. We expect, so those are some of the things that account for some of these differences. And I firmly agree with the idea of being fiscally responsible. Last meeting, someone came talk about the auditor's job is to say whether or not we are. That doesn't mean we can't get better. We've had several meetings, several community members, we continue to do so. I have meetings coming up, some more community members, and we always look at efficiency. But I always find it interesting when people come in, they come in with a business. That's work. I like to say in the real world, I worked in the real world for a period of time, and there's one set of rules there, and there's a whole other set of rules. Education. Ahead. And I agree with them, we have a problem. So, yes, there is some declining enrollment without question. But as you can see, it's necessary to maintain a fiscally responsible budget again. For the 3rd year in a row, 96% graduation rate is coming our way. We are sending our valedictorian. Let's go to become the all-state, all math team. And then go on, but I'm going to start that.
This is Brown, I do have a question on that.
Wait, can you,
Okay.
hold on 1 second? Vince, can you hear me up there?
I can.
Is there a way to raise the volume to the people in the virtual audience? Is there a way to make us louder to them?
Yes. Okay.
Thank you. That's helpful. Go ahead, Myers, I'm sorry.
I don't know about Mr. Bum, you told us to stay, really, you tell them. Mr. Bum as well. Well, you know, it's hard for me to be. I do have another question. We look at the year-over-year increase, 4.02, is that where we are? 4.2. The inflation rate this last year was roughly 5-6%, is that right?
As of January, when they said the tax cap would be 8%, it's since come down, but for the bulk of the year, I guess through December, it was 8%.
So is that to say that our budget is less than the inflation rate, so we're not even keeping up with inflation? Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I mean, 4.2%, yeah, definitely are increased there.
I'm not coming to this.
So I'm gonna say. My phone, I'm used to this. Maybe a lot of people in Frankfurt down. Okay, so thank you very much for your presentation. We greatly appreciate it. We greatly appreciate the fact that, you put a lot of effort into that and gave us a few things to think about. We as a board, the 7 of us and administration, we worked for months on what we believed to be a fiscally responsible budget for the community. Up until the day that we adopted the budget, we were going out with 2.43. That day at the 11th hour, we were given the ability to pass on some savings to the community by getting a discount in health insurance rates. So we immediately took that opportunity prior to walking into the room to adopt the budget to drop that tax levy to 1.99 because we felt it was responsible. Excuse me. At this time, I'm going to ask the members of the board to advise if there's an area that they found since 2 weeks ago that they believe we can find additional savings in, or if you have specific areas that you want Mr. Press to look into prior to the meeting next week, so that we can comprise the budget or see where we're going to go with this. So I'm going to ask you guys here at the table to just give your opinion or state what you want to state, and then Bert can just open the screen. Bert, I know you're there, but you're there behind me then. Then I'm going to come to you. So at that point, I'm going to ask you to unmute yourself. And then we're going to explore questions from the audience. At that time, I'll give directions for questions from the audience. So I'm going to start with my grab if you want to go first and confirm my mic.
They might have. Mine's more of a statement. I just want to thank Joe for the presentation. Everyone out there, all 7 of us are taxpaying residents of West Hempstead. None of us want to see our taxes go up. Okay? But we've worked tirelessly over the last month and a half to put out a fiscally responsible budget. This budget that we'll put out is in line with most districts on Long Island. Inflation right now is sitting at approximately 5%, and we're going out with a tax levy of 1.99%. I find that to be really fiscally responsible. That's nice.
Thank you all for coming. Good night. I'm saying, participated. I've been member of this board for over 30 years, and I've been against budgets, for budgets, and sometimes, in between. Which one's been quite a different year. I feel strongly that this budget that we're presenting is a good budget, and I really can't see any places where this budget, can go as far as cutting. We nickel and dime, you can do things, to remove 10,000 here, 10,000 there, but I don't think that's going to make a difference. kids need all the services that we give them, and being on certain committees and things over the years, they see what this district has done. And I went through the school system here, children went through the school system here, my grandchild for a few years, but this district's been good to all the people in the Hempstead, and I think we can support everybody.
Good evening, everyone. Mrs. Bromby asked us to look for an area where we can find some additional savings. I can't think of one area that we could find additional savings because I'm confident that Mr. Express did everything that he could to find those savings, to present those savings, and to craft a budget to put in front of us that he was confident in. And I am confident in that. Once that budget was put in front of us, the majority of the board worked very hard to make sure that the budget was fair to not only the students that we're tasked to represent, but the residents that we live amongst also. Because I think that we forget that the 7 of us live here too. And we walk the walk that we put in front of you all. We ask you to follow us in that same walk. So I'm very confident in the first budget. I don't believe that there's any additional savings to be found because I believe that the budget is right for everyone, students and residents. So I would happily support the budget as it was and as it is now.
Evening, everyone. Thank you for the presentation. I echo sentiments as my is up here. Looking at the budget over the past 2 months, seeing the increase in health insurance premiums by 12%, inflation at January at 8%, inflation over the last year, an all-time 4-year high, utilities increasing, transportation increasing. I see it in my job. I work in workforce development. I get more notices about bus companies closing down, bus drivers looking for work. There's not a lot of options out there. So when we hear about transportation and bids, there's only so much we can do. We can't force a company to respond to a bid or RFP and take our routes for cheaper if they don't want to do it. That's just how it is. So I just hope people can understand that and realize that as a fact and not give weird excuses such as teachers driving students to school. So that's just my on that. But with all those increases and the reduction in staff, the 2.6% reduction, I don't see anywhere else where we could cut costs without hindering the programs that are beneficial to our students. So I support the budget as well as is going forward. Thank you.
Thank you for coming out. I'll say this, I didn't agree, didn't come up with this phrase, but it's great seeing everyone. It's great seeing everyone engaged. I believe strongly in an informed and an engaged electorate. But as someone once said, never let a good crisis go to waste. So we are using this opportunity to ensure that those people that want to vote yes to the budget versus the no voters, vote yes people, we must support this. My feeling is yes, we can cut the budget. We can cut the budget. It will impact our kids, will impact teachers, and it will barely move the needle for the average family. Barely. We're talking 3 digits, maybe. So the notion that we're going to go out and start cutting things just to save some, $200 is and decrease the value of the product that we are producing within our community MIT scholars, Yale scholars, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But we have worked so hard to build this. Last few years. I strongly support. So I will say this, if we have to cut them, knowing that roughly 20% of our funds go out of district, I would like to see an 80-20 split between in-district and out-of-district costs. For example.
Bert, do you want to unmute yourself at this time?
Yeah, I'm unmuted. So I just had a quick question. It was a little bit unclear earlier during the presentation. Can you hear me? Yeah, you hear me? Okay, good. Are we saying that even though the original budget was defeated a week or two ago, that our intent is to go out with the exact same budget for approval? Was there an answer to the question?
What's being said is that the board that is sitting at the table is willing to support the budget as is, and if Mr. Preston find any kind of substantial savings in the budget for us, then we'll be listening to it. At this point, we're not putting forth a budget at tonight's meeting. They were just making comments in regards to how they felt about the budget and if in fact they had areas they felt that they got.
Okay, so I'll be brief then. So I spoke to some of the people that that voted no on the budget. They shared with me that they did that, and the reason that they said they voted no was not really so much about the percentage increase, either in the expenditures or the amount of the levy. I think that the people felt, okay, it's within inflation. Nobody's quibbling about that. But each of the residents in our community pay over $9,000, about $9,000 a year, earmarked for the school tax. And some of these young families, they have 3, 4, 5 children that they've opted to, and they opted to educate their kid in a private school. And at the same time, they feel that it's still appropriate to support the local public school, and it's good to support the local public school, but they're choking with all of their expenses. And basically, what they're looking for is a bit of relief somehow. And I'm not sure it means a cut in services, but it does not necessarily have to translate that way. But that's what they're looking for, a little bit of relief from the ever-growing costs of this, of supporting the public school, even while they're supporting their 4 or 5 kids in private school. So I feel for those people, and that's why I don't support the budget as it currently stands. Thank you for listening.
Bert.
Yeah.
Hi, Bert. This is a longtime resident of West Hempstead here. Can you hear me?
I hear you very well.
Yep. My name is Jennifer Kolnick. I'm just wondering where are you tonight? How come you're not there in person?
Okay,
Wait. I don't know who's on your virtual audience asking the question at this time, but it's not time for the audience to ask questions. When it does become that time, I will announce it and I will give instructions and ask for you to stand up and ask a question or raise your hand, and I will call on you. We're not going to do the back and forth screaming kind of thing. This is not that kind of meeting. And if it turns into that, listen, I'm just going to say it because this is not something that I would do, but I'm going to make my own statement at this time. I've done the best I can to stay off all social media since the night of the budget. It is not worth my time or energy to engage in the community that I grew up in tearing each other apart. It's just not. It's what I watch every year when it comes to be about this time, and it is unnecessary. These are people that you see in Starbucks. These are people you talk to in Stop and Shop. These are the people you sit next to in the library, at Gino's, and anywhere else. Everybody has a right to a difference of opinion. It does not mean we need to tear each other down. That's what brings.
Just asked a simple question.
That everybody be
Attacking a
respectful.
parent.
But I'm going to ask that everybody be respectful in this room this evening. When it comes time to ask questions, there will be regulations regarding those questions. I will shut the questions down if they get out of line. You don't make me do that. Can I ask you, wait, 1 second. Yeah, and I'm going to ask everybody that's online right now, mute yourself until the time comes that I ask you to unmute yourself. So,
I'm just some direction because I've never had a forum. If a fellow board member is to make comments, do we have an opportunity to ask for clarification of that?
Well, for example, Mr. Glass said that his constituents that he spoke to,
We're looking for relief, and I think that that's a very general statement, and I would like some clarification. What does relief look like? Because I don't understand the movement.
So, again, I don't know, Mr. Glass, if you can hear me, and I don't know if you've heard the question that you just asked, and I don't know if you have the answer. So if you have an answer to that question on relief, or when you use the word term relief, that you can answer, that's fine. If not, I'm sure there are members in the audience that can answer that, when we call on them for questions.
No, the conversation didn't get that specific. They just were some relief. Some relief could be anything, it doesn't have to be a specific amount. So simply looking for relief. I'll leave it at that.
Because the question that we were asking everybody was, do we have any areas specific that we think that we can look at, we as a board that we're offering up to Mr. President to maybe look at to make those kinds of cuts or release. You had the opportunity as the rest of us to look at the budget presentation, and I want to give you the same opportunity that they had to just state if you found an area that you feel like that we should be looking at, not specific cuts that we should be making, but specific areas. No. That was the environment. I think I'm on the plan. Can you hear me?
I don't hear you.
Okay, so what I just said was that I was offering you the opportunity simply because we got kind of off task a little with that last part of the question to offer if there's any areas that you found in looking through the budget again in between the last budget and the last budget vote and now, as everybody at the table was given the opportunity to revise if they had areas they thought we could look at to make cuts. If you had any advice for that as well, for Mr. Press to look at before next week.
Okay. No, I don't. I think the administration is in the best position. I wouldn't have the audacity to push on them any specific cuts. Certainly, if I saw something that I would ask them to look at, but I think they're in the best position to look at everything and could come up with some specific either suggestions or decisions. We're mostly concerned with not what is cut, but that the overall budget is cut.
Okay, thank you. So if you can just mute yourself again and I'm going to speak
Sure.
to the audience. Okay. So at this point, we're gonna open up some questions from the audience, both virtual and public. Again, my request is simply that we have civil, honest questions. We're gonna limit this portion of the meeting to 40 minutes. We're gonna try to get as many questions done as we can. If there's one or two stragglers, then we'll try to get them allowed to ask questions as well. I'm gonna call from both the public audience and the virtual audience, so it's kind of gonna go back and forth. I apologize for the little bit of quality. We don't really do this in the auditorium very often, so I think there might be a little bit of quality voice issues going on the virtual side. So bear with us. If you have a question, as Ms. Guilty has proven, just stand up and walk to, she didn't even wait. Just stand up and walk to the microphone. Wait your turn. Everybody is going to be limited to a 3-minute question. If it goes past 3 minutes, I'm going to cut you off. So ask your question. But again, if we hit that 3-minute mark, I'm going to have to cut you off. Only simply because we do have a lot of people here and a lot of people online, and we want to allow for everybody to try to get at least one question they have. So, yeah. These questions are to pertain to the budget. They are not to be questions about anything you would be able to ask at a regular business meeting. This is not a business meeting. These are pertaining to the budget only. So at this time, Mrs. Kilty, since you jumped up to the mic so quickly, I'll let you go first.
Okay, so the first question I have is, could you explain in line explicitly, this is what the candidates forum, of what unemployment disability and workers' comp is? And could you also explain in the budget what it costs the public school system to provide services to all those who are non-public school students?
Mr. Bruss, I'm gonna pass that one on to you.
You know, hear me? Good, okay. In terms of, if I understood the question, the unemployment disability workers, expense in the budget. Unemployment is what it is. If something is let go, we have to pay unemployment. We pay that out of that.
It came up and was an exorbitant amount of the budget, so I know there was a state mandate on it. Could you be very specific about that?
About the mandate or the line, budget line.
In the budget.
I mean, when we budget, we budget conservatively, we budget for contingencies, the unknown. We don't know what our employment costs are going to be. Particularly when our budgets fail and they fail again, and we have to look at staffing, we don't necessarily know what unemployment costs are going to be. So we budget conservatively in that area, as well as in other areas. Workers' comp, when we develop the budget, we typically actually don't know what the insurance rates are, not only for workers' comp insurance, for our general insurance as well. Those rates are set, so we estimate increases based on past experience, based on our own experience with insurance. We have a lot of claims and insurance tends to go up, like it would for anyone who has insurance. And disability as well, we cover some disability insurance for our employees. I'm not sure if I answered the question.
Line or what services we provide in our budget for children who are not in our public schools.
Okay, so the types of services. Costs. The total, well, so we estimated in 21-22, which was the last full year that we had, that we spent about $12 million costs that were not related to the public school. About 18%.
Mr. Zelik, I see that you have your hand up in the virtual audience. If you could unmute yourself.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, excellent, thanks. Thank you, Jill, for the presentation. It's disappointing that the board is not hearing the community to the extent that they did not propose a budget-to-budget increase that is equivalent to what they would have got under contingency, i.e. $2 million. Instead, they proposed a $2.9 million budget-to-budget increase, which is $960,000 more than they would have gotten under a contingency budget. For 10 out of the last 11 years, the district has over budgeted.
Mr. Zelik, do you have a question?
Yeah, I'm getting to it. The projected expenditures with actuals every year, on average over $2 million. I'll just talk some stats and then I'm going to get to my question. 2015-16 budget 59.4.
Questions?
Yeah, I'm getting to my question. So we're talking about a 960,000 or 1.5% of the budget, which is a drop in the bucket or half the amount we have been padding the reserve by each year. Reducing the amount will only cause us to pad the reserves by $1 million in the coming year instead of roughly $2 million. Really, the board had a year and a month since the last budget failed, and still we haven't seen anything to reduce the expense side. If the board needs more time and hasn't come up with the reductions, they could easily reduce the budget by the full 960,000 with zero effect on education. I'm getting to the question at this amount, as this amount will just end up having 960K less in surplus in 2022-23 audit. And there's no reason to threaten to take away sports and centralized busing. It could easily be absorbed. We're asking the board to do this. Here's my question. 19-20, the audit showed an increase of 2.2 million. 18-19 was 1.5 million. So it seems like a similar pattern every year. So we can't refute that expenses should have gone down with significant drop in enrollment. Part of the job's fiduciary duty to the taxpayer, which is not being done. So just wanted to.
I'm trying to understand the question though. So because I know you're trying to get it in your 3 minutes, but
Yep.
I'm not able to understand the question. Can you just slow down a half a second and just read the question to me?
Yeah, sure. So the question is the $960,000 that it's being asked for. We see it as we'll end up in a surplus and could easily be reduced. If the board needs another year to figure it out or to figure out the expense side, we could easily go with the 0% this year and not affect education. And based on that, we're asking to go to 0%. There shouldn't be a need for busing. Most of the busing.
I understand that you're trying to say that you would like us to reduce this by $960,000, but at no point did you get to a question. So I will, if you want to leave your hand up, I will come back to you and you can ask the question after I allow somebody else to speak. But, you know.
Don't have enough time.
That's all right. Tim, you want to go?
First of all, I want to thank all you guys. You all thank us if you was right, straight out. I have a question. You know, the budget failed last year. You guys trimming the budget. I guess how much that was that you guys trimmed the budget last year? It was about 0.5%. I think it was about $250,000. I asked what the revote was. Approximately, we're estimating probably approximately $20,000. $20,000. So in essence, we save about $180,000. When you figure in the cost of the election, but what we saved, we basically saved about $180,000. But that accurate? Well, if we reduced it by $250,000. So what, at bottom line, what did every homeowner in West Hempstead save by trimming that $200,000? What relief did we get? I don't know that number exactly. If we estimate that $960 million is $55 a year, and a quarter of that is looking at $40. You know, everybody and we risk losing all the things that we could do. I don't see how that makes sense. My opinion. Going forward, a lot of things can be taken away. We talk about the 1,600 kids.
Tim, I'm sorry, I have to stop you because you're at your 3 minutes.
Oh.
You want to stay at the mic?
My problem, or somebody else, my phone. Thank you, Tim.
Yeah, I would just like to thank the board and all your hard work. I'm an educator myself for 28 years, and I've watched this district increase so many programs and offerings to our students. And unfortunately, a board member mentioned mentioned allowing our public schools and our children to lose quote unquote non-essentials. Things like clubs, we said exactly, don't, they like them, but it comes a point where you can't afford it. So my question is, and I'll just say this, my son is in the 8th grade, he is thriving in ways that I never expected with dyslexia. I'm a single mom, I pay taxes in this town myself. And we're moving to strip our schools in this community. And non-essentials for many, but these are services that are essential to many students. If we had to go to a contingency budget, what are some ideas in transportation that we could change in that money?
Some of the ideas that Ms. Kendall from transportation and I have discussed, and we discussed this over the last several years, because the costs have just increased astronomically each year. And we've actually implemented some of these changes due to the driver shortage. Continue those or expand those in cases where we may have two smaller vans that goes with the school, we switch that to one large bus. Say $50,000 doing that a number of times in savings. We do cooperative bidding where we try to join other districts to find some savings. We could do that with more of our routes. We've been trying to keep the routes, the out of district routes, within a certain period of time, with a certain length, which is well below what the Commissioner of Education has said is reasonable, so we could extend those routes by 9 months. That is one thing. Thank
you. And then I just wanted to make sure I'm clear on this. If we could not let is that a state law? If we go to contingency?
Yes.
Okay.
I just want to I want to say one more thing. I do apologize. When we started questions and answers, I should have, I tend to know the people that are standing up in the community, or speaking on the virtual audience, their name comes up, so I know who it is. When you come up to speak, please identify yourself, or when I call on you from the microphone, please identify yourself. Ms. Bryant needs that 2 minutes as well. So this is Ed.
Hello, good evening, everyone. My name is Mrs. Day. I am a parent of 4 children in our district, 3 of which are in public schools. I just want to thank the board for your work on this budget, and I also want to thank all of the administrators that have poured into our children throughout the course of the year. My biggest issue when it comes to this budget is transportation. I've spoken to Ms. Raymond and Catherine Brown about this matter. Just to give everyone a little bit of light on our transportation budget and the allocations, 1.7 million goes to our transportation to kids in public schools. 4.2 million goes to transportation for kids in private and public schools. Music events is 17,214. Special ed is 1.3 million. Athletics is $250K, and field trips is $6,500. So with that being said, out of over $7.5 million for transportation budget, our school children in the public schools, even if you combine them with all the other categorical areas outside of private and parochial schools, out of that 7.5 million, they're not even getting 50% of that for transportation. That is where my biggest issue comes from. And I would like to ask the board, in addition to our president and our superintendent, I've spoken about this before, what measures are we going to take moving forward with the dynamics that we have in our community to address this from a legislative level, where we can get more funding for transportation? That was my first question. Sorry, I'm going to
I'll speak for all of us where we've said in the past that we have been speaking with legislators and speaking to Senator Thomas in regards to the issues that we're having with busing and busing. We can only push so hard. They have to take that clause up and keep running with it, but we are gonna keep going out there and criticizing the fact that busing bid, that information is not coming back there and acceptable. They are doing, one bid, excuse me, in a community, it seems, if hinky is the right word, it seems very hinky that people, we're putting out bids for 120 routes and we're getting back one bid for this route, and then this community is getting one bid from another route. Used to be we would get 3 and 4 bids. Of course, the other issue being that we don't have bus companies out there. And I mean, we're literally using bus companies that are called cheese bus companies. These are the people that are out there transporting. Those are the people that we have the ability to utilize. And legally, we have to go through, the legally registered bus companies to transport our children. So, I can take your 3 minutes though, so. Back in line. Oh, and we're going to get some things done, so.
And as you recall, Mrs. Day, and for everyone else out there, I think we mentioned this once, but in case we didn't, a number of us collaborated, right, health right legislation, that was submitted to Senator Thomas, transportation aids, that we get our fair share, and also Senator Thomas, other local legislators about what we think it is, we'll call it the process of inclusion, but sticks it on after this.
If I could just make one point, and I hear a lot of the community members and someone brought up before relief. I think a good idea would be writing to our legislators, both on the local level and the state level, as residents of West Hempstead, that we look for relief on the state level and the local level, not the school district level. We want relief, and it's being on the government. Like the first out here, we want to community government.
Everyone, and certified administration and the Board of Education. My question is, when you have a budget, do you know who loses? Our children. Our children. My children go to the school now, and we just issued a college process. And colleges look for clubs. They look to see if you play the sports, not only academics, but they want to make sure you're a well-rounded person. When you want to cut clubs and you want to cut sports and you want to cut all the things that make our students who they are and who they're supposed to be, college is not going to look at our kids. They're not going to give them a second thought. They have to be competitive. And in order for them to be competitive, they need to have the services and the programs that the schools are providing. So, my motto is, and I've always had that motto with my kids, what you pay is what you get. I am an amazing. Basically, both of them asked the same things that I was actually going to ask, because I didn't want to see how much it did cost for a revote. Because I know Mr. Blacks was saying that people really wanted to leave, and our taxes are really not going up that much. And now we put in this revote, I can't put them on stuff out. He was a board that really hard to put together a great budget for our schools. It was fiscally responsible. It was under the tax cap, it was under inflation.
It was all of those things, and then even as a problem, you said that you came in at the last minute and lowered it even more because you found discounts. It's like, what does our community want? I mean, you all have done a great job. And I almost wish that we didn't put those discounts into the budget, because then we would have some room to really, you know, to lower the budget. But, I was really happy to hear all of you say that you were going to fund this budget, and I think to try to chip away at it, we're not gonna get that much back out of it. And, it would be a real good next experience. So, that's all. Hold on.
Okay, Chris, let me, thank you. What? There'll be a question. Just want to bring up that, watching social media recently, watching people in person, there's a lot of skating around. None of that is good health for the community. It just makes more people upset. If we really look at what happened with the vote, it's 1,300 people in the community that voted against it. But that's not true. There was over 10,000 people that voted against the line. Because an absentee vote is a vote for the winner. So if the community feels that this budget is right, the community needs to come out and vote for the budget. Don't blame people that have their personal reasons for voting against it. Please come out and vote. Show that the community wants the budget, and then it'll be great. But if we fight against each other in the community, all we're doing is creating animosity for people. And that's not going to help to get more people to come out to do the opposite. So that's my opinion. So, I have concerns there that there's a potential of contingency budget. Well, we took 10 months to try to design. We're going to try to figure out in 10 days from June 20th to July 1st. It's not something I would like to see. If the community feels that the budget is being spent too much, we need to spend the entire year figuring these things out, and not the last second. And there has to be a way, and Mr. Press maybe even offer a suggestion, that if there is a contingency, worst case, which I don't want to see, is there a way that the community can have more time to figure out how to solve that so that they don't have to quickly just break things for people, which will happen, and give us more time over the summer or the year to handle.
Yeah.
There is no time. We're constrained by law, law requires us to have a second vote. So it doesn't require us to have a second vote. Right? See? Or decide that. But the fiscal year begins July 1. Vote fails on June 20th. We go to contingency. There's no extending. You can figure that out.
An emergency can, I don't want to say we should, can reserves be used to cover the cost in case we don't find ways, again, to make sure people are not affected. And we have more opportunity to figure out how to get things to work. I want to make sure the students have what they need.
I have a question for you, actually. I think Please go back to the little room where I'm not producing my microphone. So I have a question for you, because I think that I was reading your question or hearing your question differently than what I think you answered. So I just want to make sure that your answer what was supposed to come. Were you asking for us to have a year or whatever to find that $900,000, or were you asking, is there a longer period of time where we can start creating the budget?
Well, there's two parts. The main part is, do we have to fix immediately exactly what we're spending money on?
Yes, we do.
Or can we use the reserve, like we've been doing until now, formally to figure out the next on how you
All right, so then I just wanted to make sure that your questions, that I was hearing the questions.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
So, we can
The board could certainly pull more money out of reserves. Well, actually, no, right, because the reserves can only be used for a specific purpose for which that reserve was established. So.
Anyway, it's not.
Legal answer is that under the education, the district must have done.
Speaking, not put that money in. That $9,000.
Sorry, I was thinking, is it, would you going on top? That was possible.
So I'm just gonna, because there's 4 people standing and 1 online, I'm gonna allow everybody to ask their question. Just know that we only have about 5 minutes of our 3 minutes left, but I do want to be standing. Mr. Sergeant.
I'm Sergeant, I'm not gonna tend to be as eloquent as Mrs. Pendergast. I'm gonna piggyback on what she said, having a high school senior, just like she does. Keep hearing the word, the phrase, we need relief, we need relief. And I'm curious if anybody has looked at the fact that that $155 increase is providing a relief to me, for the Pendergast family, and to probably a ton of other families, because that pales in comparison to the savings we get, because this district has 17 AP classes that their students are taking and getting college credit for, and it has the savings and the relief that I keep hearing from the board member who sends out private messages. What is that relief, and how does that $155 cost compare with the thousands that we are gonna reap in relief because of the programs that are here? Thank you.
You yourself.
Like proposed.
This is not going to be one.
Good evening, my name is Kathy. As most of you know, I'm a lifetime resident in West Hempstead, a taxpayer. My husband and I, all of our siblings, the 3 children are West Hempstead alumni and some are in the I've been here a long time. I've been through a lot of budget votes in the past few years. It has gotten very crazy. However, I think it's really, really important that the conversations keep happening. A little bit really down, but that we have these conversations. With that, the conversation that I've been having with people are that they feel that they agree that this budget was fiscally responsible. It was a down budget. We are below the tax cap, and listening today, we are definitely below inflation costs. There are other costs that we have no control over that are going to go. When we have 1 kid in the building, or when we have 500 kids in the building. We still have to keep the building and turn the lights on. So my question to you is not really a question that I require an answer to tonight. But I do ask that you go home. Beyond finding found money or found savings, that you can come back to us and say, we still support this budget next week, in 2 weeks, and we do not change a dollar from this budget to what was voted on. Please, find the line, not tear down, and she can say that budget, just the way it is, and see, now that it's failed, you will see more people come out and say, I really think what you was going to fail, now I'm coming down and voting yes. You can see the votes now. Thank you. Resident and educator. Mr. Glass, made a comment where he told us that he spoke with members of the community that voted no. Because they have 4 or 5 children, they send them to private school. School is a choice. And as a parent whose children went to public school and then much like mine decided to go to private Catholic school. But I am so proud that we have a public school that offers so much for our students. And my suggestion is for those who can't afford to send their kids to public schools, let's get together and talk about what we can do for those families who are suffering from sending their kids to private school, how we can get them to come to our public school. Because we provide for them, and at this point, we provide transportation, we provide books, and we provide transportation books and special services. So how can we get those parents whose children go to private schools that are having a hard time paying for it to think about coming into what we offer in our public schools and make it work for everyone? Because I think that we do it very well.
Mr. Zelig, I tried to call on you before. Do you want to unmute yourself and ask a question, please?
Yeah, I'll try to ask the question first this time. Sorry about that. And then I just want to state a couple of numbers after. Do you agree that as per the NYSED website, most of transportation is covered by the government in transportation aid? If you make centralized bus stops, how would that reduce the transportation aid number by the government? So based on the data I saw on NYSED, and correct me if this is wrong, but pupil transportation was about 7.6 million in 22-23, of which 4.2 million was covered by transportation aid. And then in 2012 and 13, that number was 4.4 million for transportation, of which 2.3 million was covered in transportation aid. So my question was, net real cost of transportation has only increased roughly 1.2 million over the last 10 years. And that's the whole budget for public, private, and special ed busing combined, which is equivalent to like 1% of the total budget. So, I mean, to me, it seems like it's not the issue. So I know we're talking about transportation a lot. I was just trying to understand if a lot of it's covered by transportation aid, why it keeps coming up. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to let Mr. Kresge answer that question. If you could name yourself, please.
Transportation costs go up because the expenses that were charged by the bus companies go up. Transportation aid is paid a year behind. So when the costs go up $1 million in a year, we're getting aid for the transportation costs from the year prior. So the expenses go up, we have to cover them, don't get reimbursed for those expenses until the subsequent year. So that's why the transportation costs go up.
Mr. Day, you want to go ahead and answer your question?
Good evening, everyone. Again, I'm Mrs. Day. Another question that I have, well, I just wanted to say, Margaret, I think that the thing that you posed was very, very trying to come together as a community and see how we can come together instead of being divided. So I commend you on that. But my question is, Mr. Press, you have made reference to the fact that sometimes in projections we have come up with deficits, which have caused us to go into our reserves to utilize money towards our budget that we did not anticipate. So I just wanted to ask a question with regards to where our majority of our deficits coming from on a year-to-year basis from our projections. Where are we overspending in areas that were unanticipated in our initial projections? That's my first question. And my second question is, be that revenue that is raised in our district goes to offset our budget to a certain extent that we can raise it. Has the board or the superintendent in any way thought of any additional ways that we can increase our revenue in the district?
So as I had mentioned earlier, we have increased our budget of reserves and fund balance. So when the expenses, which basically means they make up a larger percentage of the revenue. Reserves and fund balance is basically like taking money out of the savings. So over the last few years, our expenses have gone up considerably. Medical insurance, so yes, where we come in, I guess, under medical insurance has gone up at rates that we have not seen for quite a while. They went up 15% county free. So I know it's that's one of the areas. Transportation has been one of the areas that has increased what what at astronomical rates in some ways anticipated. Our utilities costs this year are coming in much higher than the anticipated. So that's where we, in terms of expenditures, that's where we're seeing large growth. When we budget for the use of the reserve and fund balance as a percentage of budget, we project essentially to run deficits. It's a projected deficit. So we know if we every year underspend the budget by about 2.6 million, say maybe last year. Two, we're budgeting then the use of $3.8 million for fund balance. Pretty good chance that we're going to tap into the reserve. So that was a plan. Last year was a plan deficit. This year was a plan deficit as well. Just because the costs have gone up, we didn't have the ability. The only way we could match revenues with, without increasing our use of reserve and fund balance would have been to exceed the tax cap, which in this community where we do pass the budget, it's at 53%. Last time we passed it last June, there's no way we're going to get 60%. So we're not going to pierce the cap. So the only way we cover those expenses is then increasing our use of reserve and fund balance. And that's where we have this claim deficits.
Okay, well, thank you for shedding light on that. Okay. Next question. Okay, I have no more questions.
Second. Thank you.
Yes, yes.
Need it. I'm gonna use my big girl voice. The four people that are standing at the microphones, those are the last questions. We certainly exceeded our 40 minutes. So I just want to make sure everybody's aware that the people standing at the microphone will be the last part.
So in terms of revenue sources, some things we're really ready. The title grants, Title 1, 2, 3, 4. As we receive, as you know, the 21st Century Learning Grant, which is for the entire community, that's done and will continue to with students involved. That's underway. That's up to $800,000 a year for the next 5 years. And then rewrite that grant, apply for that grant. Ms. Riley, Ms. Nito, Ms. Dr. Miniposi. By the way, the people I said has ducks, if you weren't aware, very exciting project we have going on there. But they are all part of the primary project, which is a grant for support students who are struggling, issue primary level, about actually recognized for that. That's another grant. And right now, currently, Dr. Miniposi, Smiley, myself, are writing with Adelphi University a grant called the TRP grant, which is the Teacher Residency Program. And we're going to be requesting not up to, we'll be requesting $300,000 so that we can secure neighborhood of 10 to a dozen residents who not just be residents, but also be substitute teaching, but funding savings there, but also create a pipeline for education, even if they can teaching with us. There is a deficit tonight. That nature, there is a deficit in education, and we want young men and women to come into education to continue to make work. Staff administration
here. Ending that. My name is Tim Pendergast. I spoke earlier about being a lifelong resident. Very important, as I said, for well over 10 years. I'm very tight with very members of this, a lot of members of this community. I love most of the children in this community. I've coached every type of kid from Catholic, Christian, Muslim, Black, white, you name it, I've coached them. I treat them all the same. Okay, now, I would like to ask you guys and urge you guys to please roll out the same budget you rolled out last year. I want to hear, at the Andre statements. I feel with the fiscally planned budget, the plan is looking good, very timely in the fiscally planned budget. The accusations that are being made are nothing but accusations, they're baseless. The things we stand to lose are not worth the money we are going to save. That is my opinion. I stand by it. My second thing I'm gonna ask is transportation. It's a huge part of our budget. I believe it's the largest line item in our budget. Mr. Zelli made reference to state aid. I am not sure of the answer to this question, but is there any way to trim our transportation budget so that the state covers the entire cost, such as centralized busing or anything like that? Is there any way? I know it would be an inconvenience for the community to have centralized busing, have to drop kids off at one place, arrange for pickups, get extra security, and all the other things that are going to be involved in that. But from what my understanding, you won't lose the busing. It just might not be as convenient, but we might lose the field, we might lose sports, we might lose AP classes. They're gone. So I would rather see people be inconvenienced than lose out completely. So I would ask you to please take a look at the transportation budget. If things have to be trimmed, please look there. And again, I don't want to take away anything. I voted yes for the budget. Private school and public school father. I think Mr. Bowman talked about aggressiveness, and I agree. And I don't see voting yes for the budget, and I can't see that being the reason why I'm causing something. If you ask, the question is, how many districts didn't pass their budget in all of them? See a fiscal good budget, and this whole just long island. So when you take somebody who talk about being divisive, the question is, why are we divisive when we voted yes for the budget? I beat other kids that I want. Do you want the worst district? Do you want our children the bare minimum? Is that what we want to educate our kids? Again, I'm a private and a public school dad. My daughter's a senior. Graduated, great college, tons of credits. That cost me pennies on the dollar. So the question to the board is, what do we do when we're voting yes for the budget, but we're being treated as being divisive? I'm not divisive. I'm not the person who's causing a wedge in this community. I'm saying yes to a great budget. So I don't know what we're supposed to do when someone says, let's just trim the fat because we're all hurting, because I'm hurting too. It's very expensive to live on Long Island. But when you don't come with something other than we're all hurting, because we all are. Everyone that voted for this budget could use more money. My guess. It's $150. Zeller said save $96,000. We already did the math on that. When you divide it by 5,600 homes, we all pay taxes. We're going to shuffle buses around so we can save $50 a house. That's not changing our lives. $50 is not changing our lives. We can save money in so many different ways other than this. And we can stop this wedge in this community if we all just see that this is a fiscally sound budget. And the people that are voting yes for this budget are not looking to pick a fight. We're looking to educate our children, and we're looking to do this together. We're not looking for a fight.
A lot of people are asking. I would like to thank the West Hampton School District on behalf of the Mad Roxy family for the relief we received. Buses. Because three of my children went through the school district. Well, three of my children graduated with either 2 or 3 semesters of college credits at a fraction of what we would have paid if them to take those courses that were transferable to their colleges. There. We'd like to thank you for the clubs, the sports, the music programs. My son was in resource room and reading and got the help he deserved, the education he deserved. And because of all those non-essentials, they were able to apply for scholarships. And guess what? All 3 of my kids got scholarships from what? Everything's going up in the world. We feel or we know our private school tuition going up as well, or is it just the public schools that the cost is going up? Private schools are based
By thousands of dollars a year.
Oh, that's.
Before that,
Well, thank you.
I want to thank everyone for participating this evening. Beautiful country we live in. It's a great expression of democracy. All the young ladies and gentlemen in the audience here, please stand up for a minute. Not the adults. I don't want to speak to the adults. We've got enough adults. Now, please stand it for the young ladies and gentlemen. This has nothing to do with the budget, when perfectly clear. I say, listen, all of you. You just sat through something that's very important in life, right? For the most part, the adults behave. You definitely behave more than they did. So I'm proud of you for that. Number one. Number two. This is what America is all about. This is what West Hempstead is all about. It's about standing and debating. Now, here's the important part. When you see your neighbor tomorrow or later this evening, what happened here today is nothing more than a conversation, right? It's okay if we disagree. We have a saying in administration. We're going to debate, we're going to argue, we might even fight on the debate. But when we're done, we're going to go to lunch. Right? Because that's what's important. At the end of the day, we are all one community.
So, Mr. Reagan, so in my line, as I end this meeting, I want to thank everyone. I want to thank everybody for joining us this evening. It's very important, and for those of you that have sat in board meetings, that have sat in board of budget meetings, who have sat through the bond meetings, you'll hear me say, you know, we have a community of over 16,000 registered voters, and we get 25 people at a board meeting. You know, 25 people at a bond meeting, 25 people at a budget meeting, and of those 25 people, 15 of them are administrators in the district. So it's very, it makes me sad that this is what it took to get people to come and attend the meeting, to hear what's going on and get answers for themselves. Because what's happening is that your neighbor and the neighbor next to you are only listening to what you're telling them. They're not getting facts and information for themselves. So please do yourself a favor, tell your neighbors, tell your friends, tell anybody in Stop and Shop or whatever, that it is important to come out and hear the information and hear the facts for themselves. It's important to make that phone call if you don't know the answer to a question. And Mrs. Day, I'll answer your question at the end. But it's important for you to call central office. They will answer your questions. All of our numbers are in the calendar. There is a correction. Mr. Blas's number is not correct in the calendar, so we will fix it for next year's calendar, but in the meantime, you can also, reach him as well via email. Ms. Bryan also has the number, it can always be corrected. But we look for the questions. Mr. Cole will speak to any time. And he won't stop, so just, we can't find you this room, right, Brian? I'm sure I'm talking, so limited to 3 minutes. Make sure you have a lot of time on your hands. He's not be back. But honestly, we're here to give you the answers. We're not here to just stand up here and pontificate or say what should be. We want to hear what you have to say. The issue is, nobody comes to say. I'm not picking on you, Mr. Lazar, but at some point there was a comment made about board meetings being boring. I don't really know that I can bring in a clown or a circus or anything like that, but I'll try. Like, listen, I'll try whatever we can at this point. But I just want to make sure that everybody in this room knows how important it was for you to be in this room today and take part in the conversation and even just listen to what the community members have to say and listen to it without having any arguments or disagreements about it. I know Mr. Chisato stood up and he said that I spoke about divisiveness. I certainly wasn't talking about the death votes being divisive or the no votes being divisive. I was just stating the fact that the community does become divisive around this time. I voted for the budget. I'm gonna vote for the budget again. If that makes me divisive, then so be it. What I want is the community back to the way it should be. I want the people that walk into Starbucks or Stop and Shop or Dunkin' Donuts or whatever it is to be able to talk to each other and not frown in each other's faces because of the budget. So that being said, I want to again thank everybody, including the students that came out tonight. Those of you that were on the website tonight, thank you for coming out. Just a reminder that our meeting next week is in fact on Wednesday. We don't generally meet on Wednesday, so tonight and next week are on Wednesday. The following meeting will be on a Tuesday, and it will be June 13th. That night will be the budget hearing. It will also be our regular board meeting, so just be prepared for it to be a regular meeting. At the next meeting, we will adopt a budget. We will get information from the administration, and then we will be adopting the budget that will be put forth on June 20th. So again, thank you very much. If you have any questions after the meeting, we'll be here for a few minutes before we go on our merry way. And we hope to see you guys, all of you and your friends here next week at the same time.
But I find people come next week. You need everybody to come back here.
Thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful night.